Hello and welcome back to the Let's Build, where we are moving on to construct another structure. We're going to build a cathedral. Now, amongst the concept of churches, cathedral is probably the best known, but it doesn't necessarily have to be big. Everyone thinks cathedrals, they have to be big, but they don't have to be big. Cathedral takes its name from the word cathedra, or bishop's throne in Latin, the Ecclesia Cathedralis. And that's really what it was. It was an administrative and ecclesiastical seat for the bishop. And here we're starting the work and we're building what is going to be the east end of our church. And I do struggle with sizing. You're going to see me try several different sizes and work on several different transepts. And I'll talk about what a transept is and why I did that in a moment. Now, why is a cathedral usually considered big? Well, a cathedral was created to the glory of God. So it was seen as appropriate that it was a grand, beautiful structure that was very expensive and took a lot of skill to make. Additionally, being the seat for the bishop, there were a lot of liturgical rites that would go on, such as the ordination of priests. That would mean a lot of people needed to get into the church. It also was a large meeting place for ecclesiastical and social reasons. And it was also a place of worship and burial for the wealthy. And they would often give a lot of their money to the construct of this because it was seen as a jewel in the crown of the town. Now, many medieval towns, the cathedral or the church became the central structure, and then everything was sort of branched off of that. So we're doing the same here. The main road from our castle runs into our church square, and then from the church square we will radiate out in the three other cardinal directions to get to the various walls. Now I'm working on windowing here, and we also have the concept of laying out for the buttressing. And I'm using marble because marble looks so rich and so beautiful when it's lit up properly, and it looks like it fits with a church kind of structure. Now, the construction of this church, I followed some basics. The axis, for instance. There's a direct access from the entrance, which is where I am now, to the east end, and it's on an east-west line. And this is normal for most churches, not all, but most churches. Therefore, the congregation, when they were listening to the priest, was facing the direction of the arrival of God. Additionally, because there were no indoor lighting, and there were all the windows behind the priest, as the sun rose, the sun would cast light upon the priest's book as they stood and read their sermon out to their congregation. Now you can see I have set a bunch of blocks down the center of our axis, and that is delineating the nave. Now the nave is the area between, the large area between those blocks. That's where most of the people are going to sit. And then between that and the wall, we have the aisles. And we have a single nave, twin aisle construction. Now you see me here playing with windows. I wasn't sure whether I wanted narrow windows or large windows. So I'm sort of having to play. I've left them there. I'm going to come back. I'm constantly checking, trying to decide, do I like that kind of look? You see me here arching to create the central nave. And now the nave is usually the tallest part of the church. So I had to make sure that whatever I did here was the tallest part, and then the aisles were lower. So that's what I was working on there. And I ran that central beam so I could kind of go off of that central beam. You see me here going along and laying in all of the bracing to hold up the central beam of what is going to be a very large and heavy roof. The transept, which is the piece that crosses and creates the image of a cross when viewed from above. Now, in many English monastic churches, there's two transepts. We're going to go with a single transept. And part of the reason is my inspiration really for this church comes a lot from Notre Dame de Paris. I spent a lot of time around Notre Dame when I was in Paris. So I kind of feel like I know that church pretty well, so I'm kind of working on that concept. And you see I have built these large openings for what will be eventually potential rose windows of some sort. See me dashing around, just finishing things up, and now I'm laying out what will become the cathedral square. And cathedral squares are very important to the medieval towns. It became sort of a central meeting point. It's often where town markets were held because it was a central gathering point for everybody. They were under the protection of the church, and there was just a lot of meeting around the church. So the square is going to be very large in this case. We also have to clear out space because we have to have the buttressing. And buttressing was introduced into churches because it allowed for light and airy churches with more windows. Before that, you had to have very thick walls to prevent the weight of the church splitting the church open. So the buttresses actually pushed the church back together. And you see me adding in what's going to be some towers. Now, many cathedrals have a vertical emphasis, and this can be done with domes, central towers, 2 towers at either end, or in this case we're going with 2 towers on the west end, again reminiscent of Notre Dame de Paris. You see me working on the buttressing. I'm starting to work on this. The wall of the transept is actually going to set 1 block lower than the wall of the nave and aisles, and that does create a situation where I have to work with different buttressing in order to get it to look right. But I've done this before, and I'm pretty sure I can make it look really nice. I do need the transept and the nave to intersect at an identical height, meaning the piece across the top has to intersect at an identical height, because we are going to create a central spire as well. Because the intersection of the nave and the transept often have a central dome or spire called a flèche to kind of create an emphasis. And here we are, we're just working on the interior bracing again, just making sure it all looks right and that everything would be supported if this was a real structure. Now you see me here starting to work on that central dome, that central spire. It's going to be very small in the grand scheme of things, but it will look very nice when it's completed, I hope. You see me moving the wall of the aisles up, one above what is the transept, and that might end up getting leveled out. I might pull the transept up 1 level. Now notice as the camera pans around that there are different textures on our plaza. I've got stone brick, and cobblestone. It's kind of hard to see from this altitude, but I need to make a decision between those 3 pieces of material. They will become the material for all of the roads in this town, including the one going to the castle. So whatever it is, I gotta choose. You see me here finishing up our western towers, and I did create, by punching down the corners, I created kind of a depth to these towers. Now these aren't going to be sheer towers. Go look at most churches. There's going to be windows in these towers. I just haven't gotten around to that yet. And now we're working on that central spire. Now often it's a small spire. I got a bit carried away and it became a very big spire. So I'm not sure if I'm going to keep it or if I'm going to shorten it. I have to yet to figure that one out. And you can see just how big this cathedral really is. We're talking a very large structure. And once I start getting the roof on and decorating it, you're going to start to see just how nice it looks. Now here I'm putting in nether brick steps for roof, and I'm not sure I'm going to keep it. I've used nether brick steps before. I've also used basalt brick before. I'm not sure yet. Here as we approach, you can see the different styles for the plaza. I still have to make that decision. We go through what's going to be a rose window into our nave, well supported by all of our buttressing inside. Some of the stone brick is going to be replaced with other materials, but I use stone brick a lot to start my builds. As we reach the intersection with the transept, we'll look up. There's the central spire. And then we head out the transept window. And we're going to pan around to get a good look at this church. And the castle is just out of render distance, and that I think I like that. We're about where the eastern end is 64 blocks from the entrance to the church. Or, I'm sorry, to the entrance to the castle. So I kind of like that feel of 64 blocks away. And there's our church. Large cathedral for the seat of our bishop and the center of our new town that's going to rise up around it. Give me your comments down below. Should I keep that roof? What kind of paving should I use? Let me know. Until next time. Bye.